This evening we're going to talk about team physicians and controversies in sports medicine. This is John O'Kane. He's an associate professor in orthopedics and sports medicine, and he has an adjunct faculty position in family medicine here at the University of Washington School of Medicine. He is the medical coordinator for the UW Intercollegiate Athletics Program, and I think he'll be telling you a bit about that in his presentation. For his academic pedigree, he began with his undergraduate training at Dartmouth. This was followed by his medical training at the University of Vermont. He then moved to Seattle, where he completed an internship and residency training in family medicine. And then this was followed by a fellowship in primary care sports at the UW, and this is in the Department of Orthopedics. Obviously, his specialty and his interest is musculoskeletal injuries, and these are specifically injuries in athletes, and he calls them active individuals. He employs non-surgical interventions, and his emphasis is on rehabilitation, and he has helped a lot of athletes to prevent injuries in the first place. He teaches a lot of the courses here, specifically for the medical students and many of our fellows in sports medicine. For the last 3 years, he's been ranked as a top doctor in the sports medicine category in the Seattle Magazine. So I will turn it over to you. Have fun.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to all of you about being a team physician. It's a passion of mine. It's something I've been doing since about 1996, and it's something that I hope you'll start to understand what I enjoy so much about. It's interesting because I think the whole process of being a team physician is fairly confusing to everybody that's involved. I know frequently at football games, the fans wonder, who are these little guys that are mixed up with the athletes? This guy obviously right here is a football player. He's got all the he's got his helmet that doesn't fit his head, tattoo, an arm that's bigger than my entire body. This is me, and this is Dr. Larson, who's one of the orthopedic surgeons that we work with. And this over here on the Seahawks sideline is Dr. Herring. It's not only confusing to the people in the stands. I think clearly the people on the sidelines also have some questions. Why is he walking off the field with our best player in the middle of a playoff game is one logical question. And even for the people on the field, it can be confusing. This official at this moment is trying to say, excuse me, we have a football game to play here, and he's not sure exactly what's so important that's going on in this conversation. So I think if we're going to understand how team physicians came to where they are today, I think we need to go back to the beginning. And these are my kids, clearly going to be exceptional athletes later in life. So the early days of sports medicine were very interesting. If you go back to the football teams at the turn of the century when American football really got started, very often they would have a trainer, and a trainer was a person that was employed by the team. They were generally a jack of all trades. Their job was really to keep the players on the field, and they would be the go-to person for injured or sick players. They would very likely have no medical training at all, but they would learn as they went along. They'd pick up certain things. They'd learn how to tape ankles. They'd appreciate that ice seemed to be a good thing to put on an ankle after an injury. The priority, though, was the team. They were a team employee. They really weren't about trying to ensure the health or safety of an individual player. The physicians were yet a different story. There were surgeons, and the surgeons were consulted to deal with severe injuries, fractures, things like that. Internists at that time generally opposed athletics. They felt that sports were bad, and they generally believed that athletic exertion was bad for the heart. At the same time, they generally felt that drinking and smoking were good for you. And I found a great quote. This is from a New York physician at the turn of the century describing the death of a former cyclist. And he said, finally the heart he had enlarged through cycling turned on him after sedentary years as a bookkeeper. The weakened organ began demanding beer, then cigars, but in the end, even these stimulants proved inadequate. So I think I run into people that still wish this is the way it worked, But it's interesting, if you look at the reasoning behind this statement, physicians at that time were able to determine through auscultation that athletes' hearts were bigger than the general population. They understood that the hearts would enlarge. And they also observed athletes in their prime with lots of muscle that would get bigger and bigger. And then they would see them stop competing as athletes, and it would appear that their muscles just turned into fat. And I have people sometimes that see me today and wonder if their muscles are turning to fat. As it turns out, that's not what's really going on. The muscles are actually shrinking when you don't use them, and if you continue to eat like an athlete, when you are no longer an athlete, you will start to become fat. But they believe this is what happened to the heart as well, and so they assume that the problem was not being an athlete, but if you took the risk to be an athlete and developed this athletic heart, once you stopped, you would surely die because your heart would just turn to fat. So it was probably a very good thing that there were not many of these physicians hanging out with the athletes of that day, because they gave them significant anxiety complexes. Fast forward to the future, the modern certified athletic trainer, and this is off the NATA website. The NATA is the National Athletic Trainers Association. It's the organization that accredits athletic trainers. And so, certified athletic trainers are healthcare professionals who specialize in preventing, recognizing, managing, and rehabilitating injuries that result from physical activity as part of a complete healthcare team. And we're going to keep coming back to that tonight, the team. The certified athletic trainer works under the direction of a licensed physician and in cooperation with other healthcare professionals, athletics administrators, coaches, and parents. The modern team physician is also, I hope, a highly evolved animal from where we started. The team physician consensus statement actually outlines nicely what a modern team physician should be, and the person should be an MD or a DO in good standing, having fundamental emergency skills related to sports, CPR trained, and then possess a working knowledge of trauma, musculoskeletal injuries, and medical conditions affecting the athlete. As you'll notice there, it doesn't say that they're an internist or a family practitioner or an orthopedic surgeon. Sports medicine actually is not a specialty for which you do a residency. Sports medicine and then eventually becoming a team physician is an area of special interest, of fellowship training that you move on to afterwards. The specialties commonly functioning as team physicians are family practice, that was my residency training, orthopedic surgery, physiatry, Dr. Herring is a physiatrist, pediatrics and internal medicine. And there are some other specialties as well, but those are the ones that most team physicians start out in. And to get back to the team concept, to be a team physician today, to do good athletic care today really involves a good certified athletic trainer and a good team physician. And this here is a picture of some of our athletic trainers helping somebody off the field. This is Jen and Rob, two of our football staff. This is me, and this is Dr. Harmon, who's the other family practice doctor that helps try to keep our football team going. So what are the roles of these team members? Athletic trainers are the people that are in the training room all the time. They oversee the training room. They are always there. Athletic training involves an incredible number of hours, an incredible number of contact hours. If the athletes are doing their thing, the athletic trainers are there doing it with them. They tend to be the first contact, so there's a real triage role in athletic training. They work to try to prevent injuries. They do a lot of taping and bracing, and they're also involved in rehabilitation. The team physicians oversee the practice of medicine in the training room. In a modern training room, you actually have a medical clinic now. We have a medical clinic in the training room at the University of Washington. There's a medical clinic as well in the Seahawks facility, and the practice of medicine is overseen by the physicians. The physicians also oversee the athletic trainers as physician extenders. Athletic trainers are not licensed to practice medicine. They really do provide a lot of medical care as in that triage role, but the physician is really the person that stands behind them and allows them to function that way, and the physician diagnoses and treats illness and injury. Pretty much everything we do, in some respect, we're doing together, and the things where we're really working together is game day coverage, where we're both on the field together, emergency response, there's administration that takes place that we share. Education is a huge part of it, and we're educating our players, we're educating our coaches, and injury surveillance is a big part of that education, and a nice example of that, I think many people here are probably aware that in similar sports, women are much more likely to tear their ACL than men. This is something that's fairly common knowledge right now. And this was initially understood because the athletic trainers in the NCAA were keeping track of the ACL tears in the soccer programs, male and female, and in the basketball programs, male and female. And they started looking at that data and realizing that women were tearing their ACLs much more than men. And once they came to that realization, then we started trying to understand why that was happening and started putting together prevention programs that hopefully will start to even out that trend. So injury surveillance is a big part of what we do. This is a picture here of me and Nikki Smith, who's our women's soccer athletic trainer, and we really feel like through teamwork we try to keep our athletes on their feet, literally sometimes as well as figuratively. So what is the most important task then for a team physician? And this is certainly debatable, and there may not be only one thing, but I find that one of the most critical things that I need to do on a daily basis is communicate, and communicate with a very large number of people. Whenever you're part of a team, it's very important that your team is all on the same page. So I need to be in communication with our athletic trainers every day. We have to communicate with our coaches so they understand what's going on with our players. We need to communicate with our athletes so that they understand what they need to do to try to keep themselves healthy. And then we have parents that are involved, particularly with college athletes, possibly sometimes with pro athletes. We have the media, who has a significant interest in what we're doing, and that's very unique about being a team physician. Any one of you could come see me tomorrow in the sports medicine clinic and hopefully have a very productive visit, but the Seattle Times really won't be interested. Although when we take care of the starting quarterback, the Seattle Times is extremely interested. And we also have to deal with agents and athletic directors and occasionally owners. So what I want to move on to now is what I really describe as the balancing act. It's how do you function as a team physician, balancing a number of these different concerns that sometimes are conflicting. When I started trying to think about, what are the challenges of being a team physician, I started by addressing what is my practice environment. Most doctors work in a hospital or a clinic or in an emergency room. All of you have had some exposure to physicians, and I imagine it's in one of those places where it's taken place. Where have I practiced medicine as a team physician? Well, I practice in the training room every day, and we have a clinic that's in the training room, and that's relatively straightforward. But we also practice on the field. And it's interesting practicing on the field because you have somewhere around 85,000 people that are watching what you're doing. And you wonder sometimes what they're thinking, and you have to be cognizant of the fact that you have quite an audience and make sure that you're very well prepared to do what you need to do. It's also challenging to listen to someone's heart when 85,000 people are screaming behind you. If you don't practice on the field, then you may find yourself practicing on the bus. And usually in the middle of the night, after a night game, usually somewhere like Utah, where you're driving along, trying to start an IV in someone who's cramping as the bus bounces down the road in the dark. And if they're not kind enough to cramp for you on the bus, they'll cramp on the airplane. And the airplane's an interesting situation because there's that seatbelt sign, and they're serious about that seatbelt sign, but when you have a person who's 320 pounds screaming and flailing in pain because they're cramping, sometimes the seatbelt sign's not quite as serious, and they actually ask you to get up and please go do something about it. Or they'll have to land the plane because he's moving the whole thing. The restroom is an interesting place to practice medicine, and this has come up more recently with increased security. We used to never go into airports, but now we do have to go through security screening. And this year we had a situation where someone required an injection for something while we were in an airport. And there were a lot of other people wandering around the airport, and I thought it would be odd if somebody wandered by while I was injecting another person sitting next to me. So we decided that it was probably better to go into the restroom and get a little bit of privacy. And I think it probably was a good move in terms of the privacy, but we got some funny looks coming out. The beach was a place I got to practice this year. That's a nicer place to practice. We actually had a jellyfish sting with a pretty significant allergic reaction. I've had some coral cuts. And my favorite place to practice is Disneyland. And I had the opportunity to practice at Disneyland once. I've not had that opportunity for a while, but if we can get our football team going, I'm hopeful that I can get myself back to Disneyland sometime soon. So what are some other challenges of being a team physician? I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and we don't have that much time, but it is a position where there are many potential conflicts of interest. And the critical question is, who do you work for and who do you serve? And clearly, when the athlete comes to see you, you are the athlete's physician. The athlete has an expectation that you are there to try to take care of them. And from an ethical standpoint, I think that that is really the beginning and the end of being a team physician. You are there to take care of the athlete. But you also have a team involved. And the interests of the team may not always be completely parallel with the interests of the athlete. If you have a starting player who they really need for Saturday or Sunday's game, and he has a knee injury that he might be able to play with, although it would put his knee at greater risk, there's going to be a lot of pressure to try to get that guy out there. And you as a team physician need to be able to stand up and try to defend that player and make sure that everybody involved understands that you need to do what's best for them. Behind the team, you have universities and professional organizations. And I don't think anybody doesn't understand the extent to which winning is very important to these organizations. And there's a lot of pressure also to get athletes to perform. And the other group that has a real interest, and we touched on it before, is the public, and that interest is via the media. And you know, it says a lot about our society that the paper that comes to my door every morning broadly has 4 parts. And one of the parts is sports. It's that important. You know, we've got everything that happened in the world, everything that happened around Washington, sports. That says something. And so, you know, there's a lot of public pressure when you're involved in these types of cases, and you really have to manage that and remember who it is that you're taking care of. In spite of that, though, there still are a number of rules that still apply when you're taking care of athletes. There are privacy rules. Hipaa and Ferpa are 2 different privacy rules. Ferpa affects college athletes. Hipaa affects everybody else. But when you're sharing information with the media and with coaches, you have to be cognizant of the fact that you don't violate the confidentiality of the athletes. You have state and federal pharmacy laws. I practice a whole lot in California, and I'm not licensed in California. So you have to figure out, how does that work? How is it or is it not okay to carry narcotics on an airplane and land in California? Probably it's okay in California, but there are probably some other states where it isn't. You know, the rules do still apply, though. You have a duty to your patient, and you can't let those external forces interfere with your ability to do the right thing for your patients. And you also have to do no harm. And I think everybody expects this from their physician. This is fairly well accepted, although it really is interesting, because if you're treating a middle linebacker, do no harm gets a little confusing. If I have a middle linebacker that's coming off the field with an injury that I'm taking care of, and I'm facilitating that person getting back onto the field, that person will be very clear about their desire to go out there and do harm. That's what they're about, is they want to go out there and do harm. And if they don't do harm to the other person, they will do harm to themselves. That's the other thing with football, is the person that gets the most injured is usually the one that delivers the blow. So it is you really have to balance accepting and understanding someone's desire to do something that is frankly inherently dangerous, yet but still stand in a position to try to help them do that and help them do it in a healthy and safe way. I've received some advice along the way, and I wanted to share that a little bit. One of the very first things I was ever told as a team doctor is that being a team doc is a hobby, don't confuse it with your job. And the implication of that statement was that this is an incredible amount of time. You spend hours and hours and hours and hours on practice fields, in training rooms, on buses, on sidelines, and you may receive some compensation for that, but it's very, very little, particularly if you consider it hourly. And so there are certain things that you need to give up. I think it's viewed externally as very exciting. Being on that sideline is exciting, but it also is a whole lot of time, and I think you have to understand and be prepared to understand that there are sacrifices that have to be made. And this is a quote that I attribute to Dr. Herring. It is a lot of time, and it really is a labor of love, but from which you must always be prepared to walk away. And when you have that injured athlete that you strongly believe should not be playing on Saturday or Sunday, and you go to the coach and you tell the coach, you know what, so-and-so can't play. And the coach looks at you and says, we need so-and-so. This is a huge game. And you say, well, I don't think it's in the best interest of so-and-so to play. And the coach says, well, I think it is in your best interest if you want to retain your position that this person is cleared to play. And at that point, you are on the balancing point. You have a critical decision to make, and your decision needs to be, well, I've really enjoyed it, thank you. good luck on Sunday, good luck on Saturday. And that is, it's easy to think through, it's a little bit harder to go through, but it's something that you have to be prepared to do. So why do I do it then? Why am I a team physician? And for me as a college team physician, a big part of it is helping kids become adults. It's a great time in people's lives, and it's a time during which sometimes a little bit of intervention at the right time can really make a difference, and that's one of the things I enjoy about it the most. It's an opportunity to work with some of the most motivated and physically gifted people on the planet. The Division I athletes in this country and the professional athletes in this country are truly amazing physical specimens. And as a physician, it's a real thrill to be able to work with people of that ability. You get a chance to help those people achieve their dreams, and I really enjoy the opportunity to protect them from the person that's most likely to defeat them. And one of the most interesting things about this is that that person is themselves. And when you deal with very highly competitive people, one of the great challenges is to be able to make them understand when it's time to go and when it's time to stop. There's an obesity epidemic in this country because most of this population has a hard time deciding when to go. This group needs to know when to stop. And that's a really interesting challenge as a physician that I enjoy. You know, it's an opportunity to be there for somebody that's in need. And every time you stand on the sideline, you never really know what's going to happen next. And this is a play you might have seen.
In this football game, he hasn't been as fast, and there is a big hit from, I believe that's LaRock coming in with the giant hit. Alfalava too. LaRock coming in at the end of that. Everybody with their helmets down, pointed at Locker. And, you know, he's a big, tough kid who delivers a blow, but there's a lot of big, tough kids out there that deliver a lot of blows, and that's helmet-to-helmet contact, and you can...
What's interesting about football is that happens, something that looks a whole lot like that happens on every single play, but every now and then something goes just wrong, and you end up with a pretty significant situation. And when that does happen, if you are there and you're well trained and you have practiced and you're ready, you can help someone through a really frightening time.
But they wanted to get to his face and to his neck. And you can see, you know, I'm telling you, I'm right behind this bench, and you cannot believe the feeling on this bench right now. Every player on the Washington team was up around, and finally the team doctor had to ask everyone just to step back a little bit. Obviously, he's the most important player on this team, but he's also one of the most popular guys. I've known him since he was a junior in high school. He's kind.
When I first heard that, I thought the announcer was talking about me. But I made sure I let the clip run long enough to make it absolutely clear who the most important player on the field was. But so, you know, you find yourself in these situations. Suddenly, it's no longer a game. Suddenly, you find yourself in what may be a life or death situation, and then you need to take all the precautions you can to ensure their safety. And this is something that, again, the field is not the easiest place to practice medicine, but we expect to find ourselves in this situation, and we spend a lot of time preparing so that we're ready to get somebody safely off.
They will take him, and I'm sure he's been told even.
This is an example of how we evacuate somebody who we think might have a spinal cord injury. And one of the interesting things you'll notice is he's still wearing his helmet. And we've taken off his face mask because if this person in this situation were not able to breathe, we would have to be able to resuscitate them and get to their face. But one of the things that we've discovered is if you're wearing shoulder pads and you take off a helmet, then your head falls to the ground. And that neck extension, if you have an unstable spine fracture, could be what makes somebody paralyzed who's not paralyzed. And so part of, you know, again, our teamwork with the athletic trainers and our training as team physicians is to make sure that we're prepared to do this and to do it right.
Can't move not to. Sight you just don't like to see.
And then this was a unique situation. One of the nice things about being a team physician is that you have longitudinal care. Very often, if you're a doctor in an office, you see someone when they're at the bottom, and then you try to help them. If you don't help them, you hear about it. They come back and tell you. But if you do help them, you never hear from them again. So it ends up giving you the sense that it's possible you're not really doing very much good. But one of the really nice things about it being a team physician is that you get to stick with these kids, you get to stick with these athletes, and you get to make sure that they're able to make it back. And this situation was really unique because our hospital was really close by. We were able to get there in Corvallis on a Saturday night in the emergency room. There's nobody. And so we were able to get the test done that we needed to get done. And we got back to the stadium, and this player said to me, and he was in a lot of pain, he said to me, I want to be with my teammates. And so we thought about it, and he said, no, I need to get out there. I need to be there supporting my team. And we were able to do that for him.
Fans giving him a really nice round of applause. This is a tough kid.
Sure is, and he's starting to move a little bit.
And that was really a great moment for us. We were, and he is a fighter, and he is actually going to get me back to Disneyland. So I wanted to thank you all. This is me with our women's soccer team, which is another team that I take care of. It's not all about football, and I hope you enjoy the evening.